Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Buddy Study Group, the first one for 2026. And I can't think of two better guests to have with us today than Linda Tallheimer and Phyllis Shelton. And we're going to talk about a benefit that just keeps on getting more relevant, more important, and is increasing in need to study, dissect it, and really understand it carrier by carrier. So, these two ladies have done the work. We're going to talk about international benefits. As our world gets more connected, we're going to have a lot more people retiring outside of the United States. So, it's something we have to pay attention to and get our arms around. And these two have done a lot of work to do so. So I'm excited to sit back and relax and put your thinking cap on and drop any questions in the chat. And Linda and Phyllis, you can take it right away. Thank you very much for the time.
So now, Jason, you just told these people to relax and it's you told them to think. So now, are we?
Your thinking is greatly increased with a relaxed mind.
Okay. Well, I think we can kick it off by saying, why are we having this conversation about international benefits? And I think of what is the Disney ride? It's a small world. After that, yeah. So it's getting smaller and smaller. And I think regardless of your politics, you've got to recognize that some people are deciding to not just visit a country outside the US, they are deciding to reside there. And then Linda came up with another reason why people are moving out of the country, which I thought was very interesting. Do you remember that reason?
I do. I do. I think a lot of children are getting international jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So parents will frequently follow their children around the world, especially for those grandchildren. So they need to know that when
Yeah,
they
they're
go to
not following their children, they're following their grandchildren.
exactly. So we need to know that when they don't always know where they're going to be in retirement, but if they have children who are looking at careers that could be international, once again, they need to be thinking about policies that could that they could bring their benefits to another country.
And what we have learned as we did this work, which initially, by the way, was just me throwing some stuff on a piece of paper about hybrids, because hybrids were the type of policies that really have the international benefits. So, but we're going to give you a handout that you can, it's a reference document. And we went ahead and added the traditional carriers and we put in a lot more detail so that you'll have something. But I have to tell you that this whole thing is evolving. And the document that we give you today, January 6, 2026, will probably be outdated in, 3 or 4 months as the carriers start putting more teeth to this. And you'll see as we go through it why it is requiring a lot deeper dive than just, hey, yes, we're going to cover international benefits. It's not that simple. Do you agree, Linda?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we think about international benefits, it's not just that a company will pay while you're outside the country. It's how do they pay when you're outside the country? What do they require you to do as an uh, to get the claims through the process? And some of those things can be harder outside the United States to meet than within the United States. And those are things we need to be aware of. And there's none that are absolute game changers as long as the client understands what's going to be required or what could be required so that there's no surprises in claims. So remember, we are selling promises and we want to make sure those promises are kept. We don't want clients to go into claim and suddenly feel that, oh my gosh, why did I do this? Or I thought I was told that this was going to cover this and it's not being covered. So we want to be very clear with our clients, especially with international benefits, what could be involved when they go into claim. And some of these companies are now making it pretty easy for you to go through the claims process. And this is definitely evolving because the things that are happening, as you'll see, as we go through these companies, was not happening even a year ago, right? We're seeing changes, even within the last year, in terms of the way companies are assisting their claimants through the process.
And I can't think of a better person than Linda to be explaining this with me today, because many of you probably don't even know that Linda also has a claims, what would you call this? A claims assistance, claims helping business?
Yeah, claim support business as well.
That sounds
So,
much better.
and it's available to all of your clients. So the concept is that you may retire, right? Or you may go abroad, or you may, do anything with your lives. And you want to know, you want to leave your clients with a phone number or an email address, a way in which that when they go into claim, remember, when people go into claim, they are impaired. And we're talking two daily living skills, significant impairment or severe cognitive impairment. When they're in that situation, they may need help going through claim. And if you're not going to be there, it's important that you provide them with a resource. And I'm not the only resource in the country, but I am a resource that if you have clients, if you decide you're going to leave the profession, to send out a note to your clients and say, if you need help, here's a person who can help you, right? Here's a person who can answer your questions. So you want to make sure that you're always taking care of your clients, not just when they're in claim, but all along the process.
And Linda has taken care of two of my clients, and really, really done a great job, because it can get, especially in a company like CNA, or one of these older companies, needs a lot of hand holding. All right, so let's take a look at this document. And I put a note at the very beginning that, this is an evolving conversation. And I'm titling the document just International Benefits. The date is always in the upper left corner. So if we send you new ones in the future, all you will do is download and replace this one, because you don't want to have a bunch saved that are irrelevant. Okay, but the date will always be up there. And just the quick one, that all require that funds be deposited into a U.S. bank, and then people can get that money however they get their other money from the U.S. So we're going to start with Nationwide, because Nationwide has actually put the most detailed information together. And another handout that you all are going to have access to is the Nationwide handout, but we just kind of distilled some of it here. And Nationwide handles it differently depending on the product. So note that. We started with the new product, the Nationwide, the next to new product, Nationwide Care Matters Together, because it is full benefits for international, unlike the Care Matters 2, which we will look at shortly. So it's full benefits for international. What did I just say here? No international.
Actually, yeah. So it's full benefits for the first 3 years or 4 years, right?
Thank you. The first 36 months. I'm still thinking about the annuity, which just came out.
Right. I knew what you were thinking.
That. I know. We're working up to that, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So preferred rates, the first 36 months, and also the inflation. And then if they have a standard rating, it's the first 48 months and inflation. And I think we kind of figured out they're getting more money for the standard rating, so therefore they can do it longer. Does that sound logical?
That is correct, right? So remember, the first 36 months, the first 48 months, the reason for this is it's the acceleration of the death benefit on the life insurance portion of the policy. So it is just the beginning of the policy. So if somebody said, yeah, I'll stay in the United States till I run out of money, and then I'll go, to Germany for the rest of my long-term care, this doesn't work this way. You have to use the first 36 or 48 months outside the country first, and you can come back to the US, because it's only the acceleration on the death benefit that qualifies for the international coverage.
There you go. But that also includes the inflation, which is wonderful.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, here's where we get into the nitty gritty. And basically what that big paragraph is telling you right there is that the companies are still looking at eligibility. They have to look at it through the lens of HIPAA, because that is the law. And HIPAA, as you all know, says that the assessment, the certification has to be done by either a physician, as defined in HIPAA, which could include a DO as well as an MD, or a registered nurse or a licensed social worker. So within all of that, that is still here. Now, here's where it gets different. It's possible for the requirements to be met with the help of a third-party claims administrator that can act as the U.S. licensed healthcare practitioner. Because what we found as we got into the weeds is that somebody living in another country may or may not have access to a healthcare practitioner licensed in the U.S. So they're saying, Nationwide is saying, we can give authority to a third party to represent a U.S. licensed healthcare practitioner. So what that means is the insurance personal doctor does not have to be licensed in the U.S. The insured is generally not required to return to the U.S. during their claim verification process. Common sense, claim forms have to be in English. And they have to get an approval submitted to Nationwide before anything can start. Now, this is interesting here. They need to be submitted in the original language. So, not that I would try to translate anything, but some families might say, oh, we'll be helpful. We'll get this out of Chinese and we'll put it into, don't do that because it could be a disaster. So if they need to translate it, Nationwide will do that, get arranged for it. However, the policy owner will have to pay for that. Now, put a pin in that because we're about to see another carrier that will bear the cost of that. Okay. So we have to have that plan of care, just like we always do, but it can be completed by this third-party administrator. Now, watch this. The initial assessment, as well as the annual recertification, generally do not have to take place in the U.S. So that means the third party will handle it. However, if an in-person assessment is required, they can't guarantee that it can be done by video. In that circumstance, the insured may have to come back to the U.S. to be assessed unless they have access to a U.S. practitioner in the country in which they're living. If they can't locate one, they can come to the U.S. to complete the claim requirements, then go back to wherever they're living to receive the benefits. And United States, as we work through this, we'll see not just the 50 states, but the territories and possessions of the U.S. And also, I would encourage you all to download the Nationwide claims document.
Right. Now, while that sounds really overwhelming, this is as good as it gets right now. This is actually great news. That third-party administrator means that when you enter into claims, those claims administrators are the ones who can actually authorize the claim. So there are some slam dunks, as we know, when you go into claims. There's no question at all that someone qualifies and that claims administrator for Nationwide can approve it themselves without that doctor. And it's only when it's really a shadow, they can't make that decision, that it is really ambiguous or they're not even sure if it's a real claim, that they would get to that point that they would require someone to have an actual in-person interview.
Right.
There is still a lot of fraud in long-term care claims. Wherever there is money, wherever there is insurance, especially cash, people often feel the need to try to access it before the contractual obligations are met. So it's only in those types of situations that the company would require something extreme like an in-person interview in the United States.
Right. And so the two other Care Matters products that we deal with, Care Matters 2, then you're going to see 100% of the acceleration rider and 100% of the inflation protection. Same thing, no international benefits are available under the extension, but if that lifetime benefit amount's not exhausted and they do return to the U.S., then they can finish out their benefits. And now this is ditto. Eligibility and claims administration, same as Care Matters together. The new Care Matters annuity, however, 100% of the benefits are payable internationally.
Right.
There's a couple of notes there that pertain to that annuity. So I just pretty much left those in there as far as expenses, but as far as how it's administered, it's going to be the same.
Right.
Okay.
This is really a very exciting policy, the Nationwide Care Matters annuity. because of that 100% benefit internationally, as well as support in claims. So this is huge. You have somebody who has international, this should be like one of those that should be, saying ding, ding, ding. Definitely look at this policy. And also consider it, just as a little hint, do the check between the 5% in added paid inflation. For some people, it does work depending on how long they anticipate that they'll live. You have somebody who thinks they're going to live into their late 80s or early 90s and they're younger. Adding the paid 5% compound inflation can make this policy look really good if you're really looking for that international coverage and trying to leverage it.
And then also just simply the cash, because, what kind of caregivers people can find in other countries compared to our country can be vastly different. So that's huge, 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 huge.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to Secure Care and Securian Minnesota Life. What's happening here is they're allowing 50% of the monthly benefit for all qualified services, including informal care, no facility requirement. So, but all of the benefits can be used internationally, just half as quickly. That's a funny way to put that. I don't know why I said that. Makes it last twice as long. So here's an example, half as quickly. A policy purchase with $6,000 a month benefit and 6 years of coverage will pay $3,000 a month for 12 years of coverage. And however, the inflation benefit would make that grow. But see how that works? So it just lasts twice as long. And of course, if they return to the US, then they can bump back up to 100% of the maximum monthly benefit. Now, their deal is any licensed healthcare practitioner not having to be licensed in the US, but it says that they have a network of healthcare professionals practicing in the US, which will review the proof provided and determine if this person is actually eligible for the benefits. So the translation there must be, the proof has to be in English or translated at no cost to Securian. So again, the policy owner would have to bear the cost of the translation if it has to be translated. What's interesting though, Linda, as we talk through this, these large companies, they're employing people from all over the world. India, China, you name it, Germany. So absolutely. Chances are there's going to be some translation service in-house.
Exactly.
May not be for Swahili, but something like that.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think the other thing to know is that although it is a 50% use of your monthly benefit, for example, there are many countries that are half the cost of the United States.
Exactly.
So, and you may choose, instead of doing a 6 or 7 or 8 year benefit, you may choose to just do a 4-year benefit that would double to 8 years.
Right. Yeah. Well, I said long. Bright House, there's not a lot to say yet. Bright House has full international coverage. It does require certification from a U.S. doctor, healthcare practitioner, but it may be a televisit. They did say that much, but they're really not at present. And notice we put at present, supported by Bright House, because this could very much change, especially as Bright House looks at what Securian and Nationwide are doing. Okay. International benefits on John Hancock. This is the new John Hancock life care hybrid policy. I should spell that out, but that's what we're talking about here, not the older John Hancock traditional policies. So that is the total benefit. And, we could say up to the IRS limit on all of these, but what it means is if the charges are more than whatever that IRS limit is, if you can prove that it's eligible services, you can still get that benefit. So this is kind of interesting. They do want a U.S. healthcare practitioner. However, what they're banking on is John Hancock has offices. John Hancock / Manulife has offices worldwide. So the claims department would direct them to the embassy for the assessment, and will help them find a U.S. healthcare practitioner. So that is some support from John Hancock. Lincoln, MoneyGuard, fixed advantage, 36 months facility, doesn't have to be consecutive. It's if people are willing to stick with the reimbursement, it's the full benefit. If they're going to go with cash, it's 80%, which is true for that product stateside. But notice it is still facility only. Okay.
And keep in mind with Lincoln, it is not only is it facility only, but it very specifically says assisted living facility or nursing home. So if you're in a country that does not have assisted livings, or they do not follow the same terminology as the United States, there is no guarantee that assisted living would be covered, or that middle ground facility will be covered. So, this I would tend to use Lincoln MoneyGuard as international as a bonus for somebody who might go international as opposed to a primary, because it is a very big limitation internationally not to be able to use home care.
We would hope that they would cover it if the facility checks the boxes that represent an assisted living facility in the U.S. But, it's just if terminology could be a factor, and sometimes it can be, then there could be an issue.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
One America, international facility benefit, right? Again, it's facility only, and it's available at a 50% withdrawal rate. It's a reimbursement basis only. It's not included in the cash benefit payment for informal care. So that one is going to be more restrictive. There is an exclusion that excludes care outside the U.S., Canada, or U.S., except for the international facility benefit. So One America is being very clear. This is facility only, and it's reimbursed. Okay. Okay. Now, this is interesting. The international treatment of Canada and U.S. territories was updated in October 24, so recently. So here's a full list of states that do not consider U.S. territories and Canada as international. In other words, if people are in these states, would get the full benefits, not the reduced benefit. They would be treated just like any other person in the U.S. So you can see that. California, Connecticut, DC, Delaware, Montana, North Dakota, South Carolina, and South Dakota. Now, Bridge, which, by the way, Bridge is doing some webinars this week. They have made huge enhancements to this product. So if you have not learned about Equitrust Bridge, we would heartily recommend that you do so, because no one can be turned down. It's a fixed index annuity combined with guaranteed long-term care insurance benefits. So it is full international benefits. It's cash. And they're wanting a U.S. licensed healthcare practitioner. However, they are saying technology may be used. And I would think so, because the way you qualify to even get a policy with Equitrust Bridge is not medical records. It is a video interview measuring mobility and cognitive status. So I don't doubt that they would use technology, but we're kind of waiting for them to develop more as far as how they're going to administer it. Now we can move into traditional products, and NGL, National Guardian Life, boil down there, they're looking at 30 days, a calendar year. Still using, of course, the HIPAA definition for eligibility, and but they are covering the territories, and they actually have defined the 5 major U.S. territories. Like, I had to refresh my memory. I didn't think about Guam being a territory, but yes, it is. So, but still, you're looking at 30 days. Thrivent has a 2 times the current maximum monthly benefit if the covered services are outside of the U.S., its territories and possessions. Not going to get their cash benefit rider, though. So still looking at all reimbursement. However, it's for all types of benefits. It's not a facility only policy. And then they're also, Thrivent has put some thought into this, and they're even asking for proof that the insured is outside of the country. So interesting. Okay. Mutual of Omaha is 100% of the monthly benefit with a lifetime max of 12 months. And Mutual of Omaha, for many years, though, I guess as far back as I can remember, they have also included Canada and the United Kingdom with the US. So a little bit additional benefit there. Let's see, what am I leaving out about Mutual of Omaha? Oh, that the benefit is paid in full as a cash benefit versus, as we know, Mutual of Omaha is reimbursement with the smaller cash benefit, but they're offering to pay it in full if it's international. I thought that was really good. Okay. And Bankers Life is the last traditional policy that we're covering. So it's 30 days and it is a facility benefit. However, this is kind of interesting. The providers of care must meet the certification or licensing requirements, if any, of the jurisdiction in which the care is received. So Linda and I decided, as we analyzed this in great depth, that the witch doctor would be covered for 30 days. So there you go, because that person would meet the licensing requirements of that jurisdiction. It's a good thing we aren't processing the claims, Linda. So, all right. So that is that document which you all have. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's some questions or discussion. Or Jason, are you our?
I am. Does anybody have any questions for Linda and Phyllis regarding international benefit, any of the carriers that we went over? I just think this is an infinitely important topic that's only going to get more important as the years go on. And I think the most important thing you guys shared was it's not just about what they say they will offer on paper, it's how they actually help you to access your benefit. And as you can see, there's different tiers of assistance with different carriers that are offered. I guess the one question I would ask you both is now that you've kind of gone through an even more in-depth exercise preparing for presenting on the study group, has it changed your hierarchy of carriers if you are looking for maximum and most easily accessible international benefit?
Hasn't changed, it's reinforced. Right? So, and as Phyllis said, this is constantly evolving. So what might have been my first choice 2 years ago is not necessarily my first choice now. So I think whenever you have a carrier who's willing to help their claimants through claim, that's a win. So Nationwide and Securian, go right to the top of the list because they are helping their clients through claim. They're not requiring the licensed professional in that country. So definitely those, zip up to the top. And I'm hoping that this type of pressure on the industry will change the other companies, because I honestly think that the new Nationwide annuity product put the pressure on Equitrust Bridge, because some of their changes reflect some of the new benefits that were offered in the Nationwide annuity. So so we can only hope. And Phyllis and I are going to send along this form to some of the companies to let them know how they compare and see if they can implement some of the changes in their company to make them more competitive in the international world.
Oh,
I
a
think
year
that's
ago, I
great.
would have said Bright House, no question, because it's full international benefits and all of that. But now, as you look, especially that Nationwide can allow a third-party claims administrator to provide that service. What really gets dicey is finding that U.S. licensed healthcare practitioner, right? The doctor, the registered nurse, or the licensed social worker when you're in a foreign country. And so Nationwide has really stepped out here and said, hey, we can get a third-party claims administrator and we can help you work that out. So I think it makes a huge difference as to actually collecting the benefit. It's one thing to say we do it, But when you get into the nitty gritty, and I will compliment Linda again, she digs in all the time, and that's great. You really get into the detail of how it's going to happen. Did everybody see Claude's comment? I thought that was excellent. The reason
Agreed.
why Nationwide Care Matters Together is doing 4 years, if somebody's a standard risk, they want more death benefit on the healthy person because it's a second to die policy. And that's good. Maybe they didn't intend it, but it just makes it a little bit better.
Yep.
Dave, I've got a question, if I can, relate to Jason's point. Is there any reliable documentation on the batting average when international claims are put in? Are some companies approving or declining more than others? Is that available? And is that an awareness we
Maybe
have?
it's too early, but what do you think, Jason?
I would say it's probably too early. I haven't seen any data on it myself. Linda, I don't know if you've seen any, but I would say, yeah, it is probably too early to have a sample size large enough that we could really put our trust and weight behind, as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
um, it's a good thought. It's something I would like to see as things prove themselves out more. And if there is a difference between, claims approved overseas versus domestic and what could be, the correlation and causation there, I think that would be really interesting to find out. Um,
I would imagine that companies in the early days will be cautious, very cautious. So I think my answer to that would be ask us again in 5 years.
yeah.
Yeah, when the
And
rubber
it
hits the road.
and it's interesting because you got to think about like what a retire because if somebody owns these plans, they have lived in the US as a US citizen in some way, shape, or form, right? And there are many different reasons why you may retire abroad. It could be to be closer to a support system if you have a lot of family overseas,
Mhm.
right? Maybe you are born of immigrant parents, a US citizen, but would move back to your parents' home country to be around a larger family. Or it could be somebody who took a vacation abroad and really loved where they were and, as a couple or even solo travel abroad. So that's something to think about too. Not everybody's going to have a massive support system for an overseas
Mhm.
claim. So the easier it is to actually access those benefits, the better for the consumer, right? The carrier's got a lot to think about in that regard as well. But I think there's got to be something we can do to kind of create a standard of how to activate international benefits that is helpful to everyone and gives transparency to everyone, right?
That
Yes, and very important when you're doing the initial assessment with people. I've always said, where do you see yourselves living in the future? Are
Yep.
you going to move out of where you are? Where are you going to retire? Ask them right then and find out if international benefits are of interest, because why go down the road of talking about one particular carrier that has 30 days of international benefits if that's something that's really important to them?
Yeah, I do take comfort also in the fact that I think the contract language is clearer than it was in the pre-HIPAA days, which led to a lot of the problems. It's not consistent across all the carriers, but the fact that they're documenting this very clearly gives you
Mhm.
some comfort that when you file a claim, they'll follow what they have in writing there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ron asked me in a DM, do you guys have any comments on Global Atlantic's 4Care product? I haven't thought about international benefit as it relates to 4Care
I
myself.
think they're more of a reimbursement contract though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those tend not to have as robust benefits internationally as the indemnity contracts.
Yeah, I'll tell you
Do
in 2 minutes. You keep
do we
talking. I'll have an
know
answer.
do we know if this is going to affect the elimination period, particularly the companies that are saying facility only? Uh, Are we
It
having
doesn't
any
change the
additional
elimination.
requirements?
Nope. No, it's not. They're not
Do they
changing
eliminate?
that.
No.
Not in terms of time, but in terms of can you meet the elimination, in home care versus do you have to meet the elimination in the facility only when they're talking about facility only?
Oh, yeah, you would have to meet it. I'm sure you would have to meet it facility only, because that's the only thing they're going to honor.
Okay.
I wouldn't
And
doubt that at all.
That's another question and another thought entirely is facility care is not created equal around the world by any stretch of the imagination. And, you know, culturally, long-term care is not as robust everywhere else as it is here. There are a lot of cultures around the world that have an expectation of your extended family or your nuclear family taking care of you. And there really isn't much of an industry for commercialized long-term care services, right? So that is something that really, really matters when you're going through that planning of where do you see yourself when you retire? Where do you plan to actually put down roots in your later years when you may need care? For Care does not have international coverage. Okay, thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
What do you guys, I know you guys are doing great work for everyone in showing the carriers how they stack up. I guess what is kind of your primary wish for either or both of you to answer to see improved specifically with international benefits?
For me, it's just to make sure that the claims department will assist with the challenging aspects of the US certification of a healthcare professional language. Um, the US doctors, nurses, social workers, all have licenses they need to protect. And when they're operating at a level internationally, it's a question of how they interpret their licensure, right? It's one thing if they're just doing a penicillin, for an infection internationally while somebody's visiting. It's a whole different thing if they're managing their plan of care. And that's where the challenge comes in with physicians. Certainly, I think nurses, social workers may be more flexible than physicians. So having that open language for healthcare practitioner gives people much more flexibility in help trying to find a U.S. Licensed professional to manage that plan of care. But to know that the insurance company is not going to enforce that language, or they're going to enforce it by supporting the claimant with their own personnel is a game changer. And I think that's really what it's all about. So if we could see that in every one of these policies, that would be wonderful. That
I
would
think
really
Nationwide is
reflect an
leading the
addition.
way with that
Nationwide and
third-party
Securian,
claims
yes.
administrator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nationwide and
definitely.
Securian, both leading the way. Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions or comments for Phyllis and Linda? Ladies, thank you for being here to do this overdue conversation to kind of take this really tiny piece of long-term care planning and really stretch it out over a session like this.
Tiny but growing.
Yes, 100%. It's only going to
Yes.
be more relevant. And, I think it was overdue to highlight kind of the importance of not just reading what is the international benefit, but everything that it entails and just helping the audience think a little bit more logistically for a client when they come in with this request. Because I'm hearing it more and more that clients are coming in and asking specialists right away after hello. By the way, I plan to retire in India. What do you have for me, right? And we need to be able to not only kind of provide directions to go in, but also know who's going to do the best at keeping the promise and helping you access it. So, yeah, I agree. Great job. Anything else you want to leave everybody with? I will make sure that in the email that goes out with the recording, we'll have the PDF that you reviewed and the two other pieces that you sent me. We'll make sure those go out as a nice little goodie bag for everybody.
Okay. Or of course, people can share anything that's on their heart. It's an open forum. But I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. And I want to commend Buddy INS. Did you notice our uniforms here?
They are shiny.
I didn't get the memo, but I'm glad you two
Actually, I'm glad you modeled those because
It's a
because
beautiful color of blue. It was
it
green in
is.
my
It looks
closet, but
fantastic on
outside
you.
it's blue, and I love it.
But everybody on this call, if you join us on Thursday at the annual market review, we will be drawing names of people who are on the call, and a couple of you will win a jacket. So
And
there
it's
you go.
soft, and it's just
It is.
gorgeous.
It's so nice.
But what I'm really trying to say is I'm commending Buddy INS not just for their wonderful shirts, whatever, but because you all are doing such a great job leading the way, and doing more for long-term care insurance than anybody else in our industry. And I am just so proud to be here.
Thank
Me
you
too.
guys. We
love you.
couldn't do it without mentors like you, seriously. And I didn't get the memo. I only work for One America today.
Next
Gretchen.
time. Okay. Well, thank
Gretchen.
you all for everything. Thank you for the
Of course.
opportunity, Jason.
Of
All
course.
right. Take care,
Appreciate you
everybody.
guys so much. Gretchen, anything you wanted to leave everybody with outside of
Just
Thursday being the big shebang?
Thursday, don't miss it. The annual market review. So same time,
I'll
same
be there.
that channel. Yeah.
Awesome. Share it with your friends or don't.
Yep.
We'll be there either way. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate
guys.
you. Be well. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.